And Alan Bell's with us on our Friday briefing to talk about his great trip away. You've been to London, you've been to Brussels. Obviously quite important goings on still rumbling. It looks like an early potential vote now in the UK. I mean, they say early next year, probably. This is getting momentum and it can affect us. What did you find out?
Well, as you rightly say, this was a trip more based on trying to extract intelligence out of the people we met rather than necessarily promoting the Isle of Man. We've had the UK election now. We've surprisingly got a full-blooded Conservative government, and they are pressing on very quickly with the election commitment to have an in-out referendum. It's, from our point of view, we're not part of the United Kingdom, so we're not part of that referendum, and neither are we part of Europe except through Protocol 3. But changes which take place in that relationship between the UK and the European Union could have a material effect on the island, in the sense that our relationship with Europe is through Protocol 3 of the Treaty of Rome, and if the UK were to pull out, that relationship would end and we would have to negotiate a new arrangement with Europe. So it's very important for us, although we have no direct involvement in it. So the purpose of this trip really was to talk in the main to the devolved assembly representatives in Brussels, which is Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. We also met the lead member of the Conservative group in Brussels, who coincidentally also happens to be the MEP for Gibraltar. And we met the Chief Minister and Deputy Chief Minister of Gibraltar while we were there to understand what contingency plans they might have, how they see the possible referendum rolling out, and to learn a bit more about Gibraltar's relationship with Europe as well, because that's slightly different.
I'm interested in that one, because 30,000 people on Gibraltar, and they seem to have a membership that's, is it better or worse or different anyway?
They are full members of the European Union, although they are represented by a UK, surprisingly, a UK MEP for the southwest of England. Quite how that came out, I don't know myself. But they do have a closer relationship with Europe. They are much smaller. They have a population of about 30,000. As you say, it's about a third of the Isle of Man.
So does that give us hope that there would be a sort of a version 2 of what we do if necessary?
Yeah, the difficulty the stumbling block we'd have to be very careful about is if, and it's a big if, they were prepared to negotiate a separate agreement with the Isle of Man. Nothing's for nothing in these days. If they were to give us access through a different route, they may well ask for other things in return, and that could be our tax structure.
And you still believe overall it's a beneficial thing to be in rather than out?
Absolutely. I think we have to maintain that relationship. Our linkage is for trade purposes. We are part of the free trade zone and VAT zone in Europe. It is basically the driver which has enabled us to develop a manufacturing base to the Isle of Man, which, for example, the Channel Islands don't have. If we were to stay out, or if the UK was to pull out and the Isle of Man stay out with it, then I think we would see the demise of many of that business sector very, very quickly.
Okay, well, we pay for somebody in Brussels, don't we?
Yes, we do.
You met them. I mean, what's the mood music like?
I think, and I tend to agree, that the discussions which are going on at the moment will lead to a number of concessions to the United Kingdom. I think the general consensus is that the European Union, though successful in many ways, does need reform, and we wouldn't disagree with that. And my own gut feeling is that they will get sufficient concession from Europe for Mr Cameron to say his renegotiation has been successful and recommend that Britain stays in. I do believe the ultimate outcome of the referendum will be that Britain will stay in, albeit in a reformed Europe.
And do you have to do more and more trips away to keep getting the updates and also banging the drum for the Isle of Man? You got to keep on top of this?
Well, we had a number of meetings in Westminster as well. We've had a very busy week so far, meeting a number of politicians there to try and gauge what their reaction is. We do need to keep raising the Isle of Man's profile, raising awareness that we have a special interest in this. We are, though, bystanders. We mustn't overestimate the influence that the Isle of Man has. We are, as I say, neither part of the UK or the EU, but we will be affected by it. And it's just important, I think, to understand what the outcome might be. But the one thing I think which has come out of it is frankly, whilst there may be an argument in favour of a referendum, there are no contingency plans anywhere for what might happen if the UK come out. Certainly in terms of the devolved assemblies. Westminster may have a different approach.
Now, there'll be a lot of people who are on the Isle of Man. I'm talking about people who've been here less than 15 years, have a chance to take part in that referendum if they've come from the UK. But Manx, born and bred, nothing to do with this.
No, and no should. We're not part of Europe. We're not part of the United Kingdom. We wouldn't, if the Isle of Man had a referendum, we wouldn't be allowing the UK to have any influence over our outcome. The referendum in the UK is something which is driven entirely by the UK government. They set the ground rules. We have to abide by them. Their rules are very clear that, and it's not just for the Isle of Man, it's for the Channel Islands and other jurisdictions too, that UK residents who've lived here for less than 15 years will be able to vote. Those who have been here over 15 years will not be, and that's the UK guidelines. We have no influence at all over that. How that technically will be assessed is something that Mr Cameron ultimately will no doubt notify us.
So Gibraltar, back to that, do you think there's potential to be more in touch with them as well on the way things might go?
I do. We obviously do see Gibraltar from time to time, although we haven't had such a close relationship with Gibraltar.
They want your business, don't they? That's
there's been an element of that, and we want theirs too.
Yeah.
So it's a two-way thing. But they do have an interesting constitutional relationship with Europe. They're physically closer to Europe. They have a very hostile neighbour on the doorstep as well in Spain, which doesn't help matters. And they have a much more urgent need, I think, to raise the profile of Gibraltar, particularly with the UK, but also within Europe. And indeed, when we were there, the day we met them, they were in fact opening their new office in Brussels. They've just bought a new office building and will have a major presence there.
It's been a big success for Gibraltar, hasn't it? Being this full membership.
Yes, because they are a full member, they have free trade for financial services into Europe, which we don't because we're not full members. And that's the big difference, really. And that's helped them to develop their economy in a more dynamic way than you might otherwise think for a small, very, very small, I mean, the whole of Gibraltar is no bigger than Douglas, physically, and the population is about the same. So it's a very small jurisdiction, but one which has been quite successful recently.